Welcome, age of vintage society. Johnny Weissmuller was Hollywood's longest-running loincloth-clad creeper swinger. As Tarzan, Weissmuller would himself wrestle live alligators, ride not just bareback on horses, but on the back of African rhinoceroses, and stand atop an elephant at the front of a herd. He adopted the role with gusto, his fearlessness, willingness, and Olympic athleticism the reasons he still remains synonymous with the role. How Johnny Weissmuller became the first Olympic superhero. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Johnny Weissmuller, former Olympic swimming champion turned Tarzan the Ape Man. He hung around with chimpanzees, rode around on the back of wild animals, fought crocodiles and alligators, and yes, even swung through the vines screaming at the top of his voice. This wasn't Tarzan, this was Johnny Weissmuller. But before he was Lord of the Jungle to millions of delighted viewers the world over, Weissmuller was Lord of the Water. In fact, he's most likely the greatest swimmer of all time. Today, most Olympic fans in the United States are proud of Michael Phelps, who has broken records for both swimming and amount of gold medals won in one Olympic Games. But in the 1920s, the same pride and idolization was for another swimmer, Johnny Weissmuller, one of the first international swimming superstars. Weissmuller is best known now for swinging through trees with his signature yodeling yell and speaking in broken English in the film role of Tarzan the Ape Man. But his fame began as an Olympic swimmer. During his swimming career, Weissmuller set 28 world records, won 52 national championship gold medals, 5 Olympic gold medals, and his 1927 world record for the 100-yard freestyle was unbeaten for 17 years, according to the official Olympics website and the International Swimming Hall of Fame. He was also the first Olympic swimmer to break a minute, according to the New York Times. Although many older sources claim that Weissmuller was born in Winber, Pennsylvania, the son of Austrian immigrants, it has become known since his death that he was born in Friedorf near Timișoara, Hungary, now in Romania. Janos Johann Peter Weissmuller was born on June 2, 1904. He was baptized as a Catholic 3 days later on June 5th. His parents immigrated to Winber when he was 3 years old, and his father supported the family by working as a coal miner, his mother, Elizabeth Kirsch, a cook. Later, Weissmuller simply claimed he had been born in Pennsylvania. At the age of 8, his love affair with the water began with his first swimming lessons at Fullerton Beach on Lake Michigan. At age 9, Weissmuller contracted polio. At the suggestion of his doctor, he took up swimming to help battle the disease. Weissmuller, who only attended school through the 8th grade, was sickly and weak as a child, and his family doctor put him on a special high-nutrition diet and advised him to take up swimming to strengthen his body. After a short time in Winber, Pennsylvania, the family moved to Chicago. While living in Chicago, Weissmuller's father owned a bar for a time, and his mother became head cook at a famed restaurant. After Peter's business failed, he began drinking heavily and abusing both his wife and children. Elizabeth Weissmuller eventually filed for and was granted a divorce. According to draft registration records for World War I, Peter and Elizabeth were apparently still together as late as 1917. On his paperwork, Peter was listed as a brewer, working for the Elston and Fullerton Brewery. Once his father abandoned the family, Johnny had to leave school and went to work at an early age to support his little brother and mum. He delivered packages for a church supply company and hawked produce from a cart. Later in life he said, "You know your guts get so mad when you try to fight poverty. I told myself, I'm going to get out of this neighbourhood, if only because he's got a quarter and I haven't." His mother Elizabeth worked hard to give the boys the best life possible with their modest means, and he remained very close to her throughout their lives. In 1920, Johnny was working as a bellhop and elevator operator at the Plaza Hotel and longed to join the Illinois Athletic Club. Through a friend on the swim team, in October he finally got a tryout with famous coach Bill Bachrach, who had already heard plenty about him. Impressed with Weissmuller's raw talent, he enlisted him as his protégé. Bachrach recounted, "He had the gawkiness of an adolescent puppy. Also the stroke he used was the oddest thing I ever saw, but the stopwatch told it all. Nearly record time." By the time he got out and dried off, he was an official member of the Illinois Athletic Club. Weissmuller joined the YMCA when he was 14. At age 15 he joined the Illinois Athletic Club. The coach there, Bill Bachrach, said, "Swear that you'll work a year with me without question and I'll take you on. You won't swim against anybody. You'll just be a slave and you'll hate my guts. But in the end, you just might break every record there is." When Weissmuller qualified for the 1924 US Olympic team, Illinois Congressman Henry Rathbone questioned his citizenship. Using his brother's Pennsylvania baptismal records, the champion swimmer obtained his American passport under the name Peter John Weissmuller. His given name and European birth remained largely unknown until after his death. Bachrach would also serve as a father figure and mentor throughout Johnny's life. They worked tirelessly on his technique for nearly a year, integrating some of the best stroke and kick methods from the top swimmers at the time and improving upon them with Johnny's own style and natural talent. And thus he developed his innovative version of the American crawl stroke, a sort of hydroplaning that allowed him to travel much higher in the water than his competitors. Bachrach, a gruff individual weighing 350 pounds, yelled at the exhausted Weissmuller during workouts, "Form! Never swim for speed, always for form!" His advice paid off. After a year of intense training he entered competition in 1921. Weissmuller immediately began winning amateur athletic union races and breaking world records. He won the 220-yard freestyle swim. The only event he lost, the 440-yard freestyle, would be the only race of any distance that he ever lost during his entire swimming career. Unfortunately for Weissmuller, he would hold the record for that swim time for just under 2 years. Fortunately for Weissmuller, it was he who broke it. Tall, rangy and strong, he revolutionized the sport of swimming. His speciality was the American crawl used in freestyle races. By 1922, experts were already declaring Weissmuller the greatest swimmer of all time, citing his innovative variation of the crawl stroke. Racing in events ranging from 50 yards to half a mile, the peerless Weissmuller was unbeaten, setting 67 world records. He was the first person to swim 100 metres in under a minute, and the first to race 400 metres in under 5. In 1922, Weissmuller set world records in the 150-yard backstroke and the 300-metre freestyle. He also won national championships in the outdoors 100, 200 and 400-yard freestyle events, and in the indoor 100 and 220-yard events. He won all the same championships in 1923 and also set a world record in the 150-yard backstroke. His new record was 6.8 seconds faster than the old one. In February 1924, not yet 20, he pipped his own standard by a second. No one would come close to Weissmuller for another decade. Far and away the longest period of time one person would hold the top billing in the discipline since records began. Alongside runner Paavo Nurmi, Weissmuller emerged as the star athlete of the 1924 Olympics in Paris. He won 3 gold medals, 2 individual and 1 for anchoring a US relay team, as well as a bronze in water polo, one of only 3 Americans ever to medal in 2 sports. At the 1928 Games in Amsterdam, Weissmuller again was the speediest swimmer at 100 metres. He became the first swimmer to earn 5 gold medals by also repeating his feat on the 4x200 metre relay team. Right after the 1924 Olympics, Weissmuller and Bachrach travelled Europe staging exhibitions, securing Johnny's status as an international phenomenon. A shy, handsome and well-liked celebrity, Weissmuller broadened the appeal of the sport he dominated. He performed around the world in water shows before and after turning pro. He continued his unprecedented dominance of the sport for the next 2 years, and in 1925, while on tour in Los Angeles, he got his first taste of Hollywood when he was invited to spend the day at Pick Fair, the legendary home of film idol Douglas Fairbanks. John and diver Stubby Kruger were photographed by Fairbanks and friends, who sent him copies that he kept in his personal scrapbook. Weissmuller began to supplement his live appearances with print advertisements, modelling swimsuits, and radio and movie performances. He appeared in a sports documentary by journalist Grantland Rice and made a cameo as a fig-leaved Adam in Florence Ziegfeld's film glorifying the American girl. The hard-training athlete began to socialise with the show business set. Not bad for the son of émigrés who had to grow up in a single-parent household in an impoverished neighbourhood of Chicago. It was in fact poverty in Illinois, however, that would have a dramatic effect on not just Weissmuller, but the role he would be most identified with, Tarzan. Despite all his wins in water, his recognisability was about to go stratospheric when he started to swing through the air. In the summer of 1931, he was swimming at Hollywood Athletic Club when he was spotted by MGM screenwriter Cyril Hume. Hume was developing a new film, a project would come to be known as Tarzan the Ape Man. Observing the Olympian, Hume had found his star, the man to take the character from page to screen. Weissmuller's fame as a swimmer was far exceeded by his success as the star of a dozen Tarzan films produced in Hollywood between 1932 and 1948. Many actors have portrayed the hero of Edgar Rice Burroughs' novels, but Weissmuller's performance was the most definitive because, as critic David Thompson wrote, he conjured up the notion of a swimming Superman, a radio and newsreel hero, now lighted like a god. For the rest of his life he was invariably linked with his King of the Jungle persona, which he embraced with good humour. Beginning with Tarzan the Ape Man and continuing through Tarzan and the Mermaids, Weissmuller portrayed his action hero with long hair and a shaven body, wearing only a loincloth while swinging from tree to tree. While never taken seriously as an actor, his voice became an equally important part of his identity. His dialogue consisted of monosyllabic phrases taught to him by Tarzan's companion Jane, played by Maureen O'Sullivan in the first 6 films. Weissmuller's first movie line, "Me Tarzan, you Jane," became part of screen lore, surpassed in fame only by the yodeling jungle yell he invented as Tarzan's signature. His distinctive Tarzan call became a standard sound effect throughout pop culture. The Tarzan sound was even played to the homesick troops battling in World War II, notably alongside playing Lord of the Apes. Weissmuller's role during the conflict involved training soldiers to swim underwater, covered with burning oil-induced flame. Everything about Weissmuller was flowing, harmonious and natural. Weissmuller's Tarzan was pure existence, a sort of degree zero transmuted onto the figure and motions of an Adonis-like man. Films featuring the chest-thumping star were designed as unpretentious matinee adventures, though the early entries had erotic appeal. Built like a Greek statue, a 1932 New York Sun review ran, he represented the movie maiden's prayer for a caveman, ape man, and big fine fig leaf and bough man. Weissmuller's aquatic athleticism was showcased via underwater photography and outdoor swimming and diving scenes. Armed only with a hunting knife, his Tarzan wrestled all manner of wild animals while taming others, particularly his pet chimpanzee, Cheetah, to help fight invaders. In 1943, after 6 glossy biennial Tarzan pictures at MGM, producer Sol Lesser hired Weissmuller to reprise his role in 6 small-budget annual films for RKO. Though he was still popular, his status as a screen action hero began to decline. In 1948, now incorporated as Johnny Weissmuller Productions, he moved to the even lower rent Columbia Studios, starring in the B-movie series of Jungle Jim films. Weissmuller played the comic strip character as Tarzan in Pants. His formulaic action heroics were largely recycled in films that appeared semi-annually, with such titles as Mark of the Gorilla, Fury of the Congo and Killer Ape. As depictions of Africa, they were an anthropologist's nightmare, but were generally considered too cheap and preposterous to invite critical attention. After the 13th entry, Jungle Man Eaters, Weissmuller abandoned his character's name and played himself in 3 more jungle action pictures. In the late 1950s, Weissmuller retired from Hollywood after a short run of Jungle Jim television episodes, though he made occasional cameo appearances until the mid-1970s. He did charity work and loaned his name to several minor business ventures while living in retirement in Florida, California and Las Vegas, where he worked as a greeter at Caesar's Palace Hotel. In 1950, the Associated Press voted him the greatest swimmer of the half-century. In 1983, he was elected a charter member in the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame. He died in Acapulco, Mexico, near the spot where he filmed his final Tarzan movie. An icon of his generation's conception of masculinity, Weissmuller's image as a golden boy turned heroic He-Man was an apt fusion of his athletic achievement and screen legend. Although he dominated a single sport as few had, his subsequent identity as the quintessential movie Tarzan remains his more indelible legacy. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Johnny Weissmuller? Weissmuller embodied the man whose entirely human powers allowed him to exist in the jungle with dignity and prestige.